All right, so we are back in St. Louis at our office. Just finished our taping not too long ago with Ron Howard in LA. Had to bolt to the airport, so didn't get a chance to do one of these on site. But here we are. We have producer Kara.
Hello.
And the amazing Carlos, camera. Editor. Man of
Carlos
all sorts.
camera, I prefer that. That's great.
So what do you guys think?
Well, I mean, Ron Howard has been, I watched, Andy Griffith reruns when I was a kid. My favorite movie as a child was Willow. I loved Apollo 13, so I'm a huge Ron Howard fan. So just to be able to be in the same space as him and to listen to him tell amazing stories from like the golden age of Hollywood was truly a dream come true.
And you were, I could tell when I brought up to you, hey, why don't you hop on this call like a few weeks out of doing this taping, like the excitement. And it's not often that, you're leading producer on one that the excitement's so blatantly obvious, but it was clear with this one, like you were into it.
I was totally into it.
And you, I don't even think knew who Ron Howard was.
I did know who Ron Howard was.
You sure?
Yes, I knew who he was. I kind of found out about him in a master class. I knew he directed Apollo 13, but like anything else from that, I wasn't so sure what else he directed. Anyway, no, Ron Howard. I mean, he was a pretty amazing guy. The way one thing that really stood out too is when we were doing the activity scene outside in the park. He kind of knew how to block in a way. He knew where to stop. I don't know if you noticed that. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed that.
No.
But Cody and I noticed that. It's like, wow, he's timing his pacing just right. So he walks, and then when he's about to tell like a really like deep story, he stops and then talks, and then continues to walk while you probably ask a question, and then he answers it. And so, but yeah.
It would make sense that I wouldn't catch on to that because my level of experience is pretty much non-existent, especially when compared to somebody like Ron Howard. I don't know how you guys felt, but for whatever reason, I felt this like reasonably intense level of pressure to turn it on for him and like do well. And it's interesting because it's not like I'm not in film. I understand why I get stressed for a taping with like Bob Costas, somebody who was like an idol to me growing up. But Ron Howard is a little different, yet it felt the same. And I think for me it was because the access that he was giving us was awesome and so much greater than is our otherwise norm for filmings. I mean, we get literally the entire day on Friday with him, and we're with him on the walk and then at the office and then get a tour of the office, then we go to his high school. I mean, it started at 8:30 a.m. and we finished at 5:30 p.m. I think we made him late for his Eddie Murphy meeting that he had that night, and then the day before that he tees up tapings for us with his daughter, actress Bryce Dallas Howard, and his longtime partner Brian Grazer, and his brother Clint. It was just like pretty shocking that he decided to, give us that access. I don't know what you were thinking.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like when we were actually in it, it did feel maybe more personal than some of the other shoots had. I mean, we're with him at work, we're talking to his child, it was pretty awesome to kind of get different people's perspectives, not just on his success, but also like his process, and also just sort of his character and how he actually perceives himself within the industry and as a person, going from child actor to globally recognized film director, all in the space of 50-something years, and it's incredible.
How about the part that stressed each of you out the most?
I'm going to let Carlos take that because I think he had the heaviest lift.
So I feel like the school walk was probably the most stressful.
What?
Simply because, we were on a time crunch, so we had to kind of finish everything and then catch our flight like right after. But I mean, not only that, because we also had to like back up the footage. And so we were kind of rushing to do all that. And also, when it came to switching cards, I don't know if you noticed that, but I had to like run back to get some more cards.
No.
But the thing is, it's a school, right? So everything's locked down. And I didn't know where I was either, so I'm like asking these random high school kids, which way to go out? Over here? Okay, cool. Let me in. I gotta go over here. And so,
And
but
they
yeah.
don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah, no, they didn't know who I was. But I mean, I blended in, so.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you do look like you could be a high school kid.
Yeah, so.
The piece that stressed you out the most?
It was actually getting everybody to the school and the gear in the right cars, knowing that we had, this mad dash to the airport afterwards. My phone kept dropping out. There was no reception. Running around Imagine, trying to get tickets validated, trying to get the right people in the right cars, going to the right, well, we were all going to the school, but that, and trying to help Carlos as much as I could kind of figure out like what the logistics were, and it just was incredibly stressful. And then finally,
It does really, like it genuinely stresses you?
oh, I mean, my chest got a little tight at one point.
Did it really?
Yeah.
Wait, explain
And-
that.
No, it just did. I mean, I was like, I had all of these people asking me 50,000 questions, and I just kept thinking, and I had the permits to film at the school, and I was like, I have to get in a car and go to the school because, you guys had left, and I didn't leave until an hour later. So I was like, you guys are going to get to the school. They're not going to have the permits. I'm not going to be there, but I couldn't leave everybody else alone. Like, I was the person controlling all of this. And so, like, I gave Mario the permits. I was like, drive to the school. And so he gets in a car, and I'm finishing everything up. I got locked out of Imagine for a minute. And
Mario's context is our digital producer who travels with
Yes.
us to each shoot, who prefers to remain off
Who decides
camera
not to
as
be in
he,
front of camera, which is fine.
Sits just out of view here.
fine.
Hi, Mario.
But so he's en route, whatever, and finally I get in the car, and I don't know what map I was using, but it got me there so fast to the school. And meanwhile, Noah, our local audio operator technician, he calls me. He's like, I put my bag in the car with you and Ron and the two camera ops, and he's like, I have a GPS on that, and it says they're still in North Hollywood. And I was like, what? Why are they there?
So Ron decided to not use Apple or Google Maps and just wing it. And so the challenge with that is it took so much longer. The exciting thing about it was he's pointing out all these places he used to go to as a kid, as a child actor, and stopping at all these places and sharing memories. And so that was really enjoyable. It just, knowing that we were trying to make a flight that was supposed to take off at 5:30, I'm like, oh, we're hosed. Luckily, the flight ended up getting delayed an hour, and all's well that ends well.
Well, and I pulled up right behind you guys. It just all worked.
Right. How about your guys' favorite part of the few days we were filming out there? And while you're thinking about that, I should also say we had a great team. It's not just the three of us. From Seth, our DP, to Cody, our other DP, who joined us on this shoot, to rattle off some of the folks that you worked with.
Miles was another of our camera operator. He was so chill. Our audio technician, Noah, he was amazing. He kept dropping pins. Like, he was local, so he was able to help us, like, logistically.
Mercedes or PA? Shout out to Mercedes.
Yeah, Mercedes was awesome.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that stands out to me as you guys are thinking about your favorite parts are, when folks get emotional, those are always the pieces I remember. So it was interesting. We were talking to his brother Clint, and I'd say within 90 seconds of the interview, he was already tearing up. And I don't think it was because of anything I did. It's just talking about family. And, the one thing that was so evident in talking to Ron and those close to him was just how good of a family he has and that he came from. I don't know if that was evident to you, but it was just so crystal clear to me, and you kind of recognize the sacrifices that have had to be made to make the family as strong as it is.
And I definitely remember that too, is when Clint was saying, oh, I'm starting to get emotional, was talking about like his mom and his dad, and just like, oh, I'm starting to get emotional, and then him kind of telling about it, so.
Yeah, Dad was my best friend, and and I don't think you can have the kind of longevity that Ron has had, or Clint, to that point, has had in Hollywood, which is, of course, a brutal, unfeeling business so many times, without, like, he obviously had a huge support system and a real grounded family, which I think he worked really hard. Him and Cheryl, his wife, worked hard to get.
So, okay, favorite part though?
Favorite part. Okay, so I guess my favorite part was meeting Bryce Howard for the first time. I was just kind of starstruck. I was just like, oh my God, it's Bryce Howard. Oh my God. Because the first movie that comes up is Jurassic Park with like Chris Pratt, and so like her being there, just like, oh.
Her laugh surprised me.
Her
too.
laugh.
I think she
Like
blew the ears out of,
overpowering.
She's full of personality too.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell she's so cool.
It took her a minute, I felt like, to get into the interview. And then about a third of the way in, I felt like she started to really kind of share and feel like, okay, I'm going to get into it with these folks.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I did notice that a little bit too. She got more comfortable after kind of figuring out what kind of interview this was, I guess.
Exactly, yeah. That it was a little bit more family-centric than anything else,
Yeah.
And yours?
Well, I think just hearing all of Ron's stories about, especially, working with so many famous people, from Betty Davis to De Niro, like
George Lucas
being
John
his
Wayne.
mentor.
John Wayne, yeah.
John Wayne. I mean, and just every story, especially during the walk in Palisades Park, every story just flowed into each other. And like at one point he stopped, I think it was Cody, and said, hey, what cameras are you shooting on? And he said, oh, Reds. And he goes, oh yeah, the studio where we used to shoot Andy Griffith's show, that's now the Reds base. And it was like, this
that was
man
cool.
is just this archive of Hollywood knowledge, and that was really cool.
He's a
just to
Hollywood
listen.
guy. That's him.
Did you feel like we were pushing our luck with Ron's assistant?
Well, that remains to be seen, because I still need some stuff for her. No.
Have you connected with them since the taping?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. I sent a thank you.
And how were they receptive?
They were thrilled that everything went well. I've been texting with them, at the end of the day, they said, hey, is Ron still at the school? He needs to be somewhere. I was like, he just left. So, and, they said thank you, and they had a good time.
Yeah.
And so, I think when you're in that role, especially for someone of that caliber, you do become protective, because you have to.
But before the day started, it was allotted for an hour-and-a-half interview, even though we were initially thinking it was going to be a couple hours in terms of the interview. And the interview is what is the single most important thing to me of the taping. And so we were doing all this other stuff with him. And so I said to him that morning before the walk started, I'm like, little concerned that this could go long. Does it matter to you if we end up compressing something else later in the day if the interview goes long? He's like, no, I don't care at all. The only thing I have is this Eddie Murphy meeting at the end of the day, and then a dinner after that with Clint. So as long as we're done by the planned time, makes no difference to me. I messed up by not relaying that to his assistant, and about an hour and a half in, she's like, and I was like,
Time's
no.
ticking. We gotta go.
Right. So,
Yeah.
and I think I probably went a little long. I mean, there was a moment where you could tell I was wearing him out
He was getting a
a
little tired.
little bit,
Yeah.
and it just, I probably should have taken a hint and jumped ahead. I let some areas go too long, and you can feel it when we're in it.
Yeah, he
and
was
I
like
just-
sweating. He's like,
Yeah.
okay, what's up?
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, the script wall at Imagine, when he gave us a little tour after the interview, that gave me chills.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Because, I mean, as a writer myself, seeing people who have had their dreams come true on this wall of like this powerhouse duo of, Grazer and Howard, like they made these things, they made these people's dreams happen,
It makes you a little emotional.
Oh,
even
sure.
Why?
Well, because, I mean, that would be my dream come true. And
Yeah.
to see other people have it happen. And also seeing a bunch of stuff that I love, like Arrested Development, you know, pages from that, pages from Apollo 13, all kinds of stuff. It was just so neat to see, like, paper become, you know, these incredible movies.
One of my favorite parts from the day was during the office tour where he made some comment and then I brought something up about his kids' middle names.
Oh.
I don't know if you
yeah, I
remember
remember that.
and it actually, like, I thought made for a funny moment because he cracked up talking about it because I think it's the youngest son's name, because the kids' middle names are where they were conceived. But the son was conceived in the back of a car,
Oh, right.
and so they had to come up with some
Yeah.
unique middle name for
Yeah.
the back of the car.
That's funny.
Well, how about the time, something that really stood out to me and a learning moment for me was at the high school when we're in the gym and he's talking about, you know, either getting bullied or like sports and like his experience in high school. And the audio guy, Noah, said, "Hey, will you shoot a few hoops?" And I was like, "Oh, I should have thought of that." And so Ron Howard was like, without getting a warm up, he shot a few hoops and like,
Turns the hat around backward. That was the best.
yeah. So that was a great moment just to see him, because you can tell sports means so much to him, and like he is passionate about them. And that was, if he hadn't become a film director, if he had perhaps been a little taller or whatever, he maybe would have pursued basketball or
Might have
another
been
sport.
an NBA star.
Yeah, and so it's
Or at
fun.
least gotten into coaching. I think he says gotten into coaching and then been a teacher. But his daughter also, I think probably my favorite line from the interview that I can't even recite was something Bryce said about how, you know, Ron was like never the cool kid. And there are these insecurities associated with that still affect him today. So even when he was a kid in school and this massive child star, he was bullied for that. And that's just kind of interesting and sad, but I guess also is responsible for, in part, making him into the quality person he
Yeah,
is
look at him
today.
now. He's thriving.
Yeah, so just a great treat, super grateful for Ron and Brian Grazer and Bryce and Clint and Carrie and Sage and the whole Imagine team for giving us the opportunity to do this. It's a couple years in the works. It happened because we interviewed Ron as part of our Brian Grazer episode taping a couple of years ago during the height of the pandemic, and this was just over Zoom. And at the end of the interview, Ron's like, you know, you ever want to do one with me? You're welcome to, and we can have you out on set. He wasn't filming at the time, so we weren't able to be out on set, but I think that even made it better because he had more free time and more time flexibility to give us some great access. So look for that coming up, or maybe as you're listening or watching this, it's already out. But you know, this is our second one of these in the books. We're going to keep tweaking them as we move forward. So if you have thoughts, feedback, suggestions, whatever, send it in. We're all ears. And until then, we'll see you later.
Bye. Bye, everyone.